sorry. Hey, I can't hear you. I'm going to put you on mute for a second. I'm speaking with the nurse. I'm so sorry.
No. That's fine. Yeah, put it on mute. Yeah, put it on mute unless you need to speak. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We're live. We'll go.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the February curriculum meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order, and we will begin with approval of minutes from January 25th.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Madam Chair, I would like to request a slight adjustment in the agenda. I would like to request that the driver education update be moved one slot up in front of the restart application update. So right after dual language programming item. Request that adjustment in the agenda, please.
Okay, are there any other changes? Okay, then I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then that will bring us to the EPIC grant contracts.
Good morning, board members. The EPIC grant, TSL grant that we received from the federal government, that work continues to progress. Part of the grant requires, when we receive this from the federal government, that we have approved contract services within the grant for evaluation, as well as looking at building capacity, sustainability. That is actually written into the grant, and the payment for that is a certain is a percentage amount that we have to include that had to be included in the grant. The third-party services are required by the TSL grant, and the amount paid in the contract service each program year is determined by the total percentage of the TSL grant. So written into the grant is the Elevation Group and Research Associates, and we need to present this to the curriculum committee, then moving to the full board for approval.
Evaluation.
The Evaluation Group and Research Associates. Yes, sir. And I can entertain any questions.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jones. That will bring us to the Walter.
Last board meeting this month, the board approved the change in calendar for Walter Pickett Elementary School, Benton Heights Elementary School, and East to move from a year-round to a traditional. Upon that vote, and this is completely, I guess, I didn't catch it. Mr. Ken Ross, the principal at Walter Pickett Ed Center, and he is here in the room in case you have questions. He realized that with our early childhood programs over there, that there are many families that have older siblings or older children in those three schools. And in looking at staffing and looking at the scheduling, he has made the request to move to a traditional calendar to fall in line with those three feeder elementary schools. That makes a lot of sense to me. He's already met with his faculty and staff about that. They are fully supportive. And from a financial standpoint and transportation standpoint, both Dennis Covington and Mark Strickland concur that this is a very efficient and effective economic-wise decision. So that's why this is coming to you. We probably should have brought it last month with the other three schools. Didn't catch it. And so we're here to answer any questions.
I'll make a motion to approve the adjustment of the school calendar for Walter Pickett Education Center from year-round to the traditional calendar.
Second.
Since we have a second, I do want to ask a question while we're on the topic. It's not regarding Walter Pickett, but we have received some emails about Shiloh. Are you in a position to talk to us today about their year-round calendar versus traditional?
The other two year-round schools that we have, Wolf is on a year-round calendar and Shiloh. We do not have any data or any logical reason to bring a recommendation to change those at the current time. If you recall, the reason that we brought the three Monroe area schools is simply because of performance. We need to have a change of structure in there in terms of the consistency from week to week, day to day. Shiloh is one of the oldest year-round schools that we have. It's a National Blue Ribbon Award winner. We don't have the performance data that would justify the reason to change that. So that's why currently we're not proposing to change either of those two schools' calendars.
Okay, very good. And now we have it on record. So, thank you. That was information only, I believe. So, no. So we
When you say
did
the
want
full
to,
board.
okay,
Yeah, we have to vote now because Gary made the motion, I made the second. So
right.
this is going to go to the full board.
I was told beforehand that we were going to have one vote today. So, okay. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, curriculum for reading and writing support.
Okay. So the board has asked for an update regarding our work with curriculum reading and writing support, specifically for students who are reading and experiencing difficulties with reading and writing and language arts. Our EC department, Ms. Webb, as well as Ms. Carrie Rule, have shared information they shared last week and looking particularly at middle school and secondary regarding how do we go forward with continuing the work that we're already doing with Spire in elementary. So they've come to the table, and I'll turn it over to you guys at this time for an update.
Good morning. The things that Dr. Jones, we had asked Dr. Jones to send to you, Carrie did extensive research and drew out plans and pricing lists for both HillRap and the MegaWords, which MegaWords is what we had been looking at and leaning towards. She also did a kind of a side-by-side comparison of the two programs and how we can utilize them within Union County Public Schools.
So I just briefly wanted to describe some of the things that kind of stuck out to me as I was doing the research into MegaWords and also looking at HillRap. The first thing that struck me was that with HillRap, they provide intense training for teachers, which is absolutely needed for our teachers to understand instruction with these students who struggle so much in reading. However, in that research, I found that the materials that they use were existing commercially based programs. HillRap had, let me see, 8 different programs that their teachers utilize in order to deliver the instruction to their students. And when I realized that it was 8 different programs, I looked into the individual pricing of each of those programs, and the price just continually grew and grew and grew. And it's not that these programs are not adequate or not impressive. It's just that there's so many of them. So we would go into the funding of training our teachers in the HillRap process, and then we would have to make use of these other commercially based programs in order to actually implement it in a meaningful way. So that was my biggest concern. The second concern that I had was that when I looked at the materials that HillRap is utilizing, one of the ones that really sticks out is Explode the Code. And that is a phonics-based program that helps children who are struggling to decode words and to put them together so that they can make sense of the text. And in Explode the Code, it starts at kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, and it builds all the way through the third grade. Well, the problem with that is I'm looking at programs that will help our secondary students, and those materials are actually developed to appeal to kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. And I have a big concern with motivating my sixth grade students, my seventh grade and eighth grade students to buy into utilizing those materials. Although it may have benefit for them, I don't think we're going to get buy-in from those kids. When I look at MegaWords was designed starting with adolescent readers, starting with fourth grade students in mind, and then they continued up. And when you actually look at the materials that are being presented to the student, I could see that you're going to get more buy-in from those older adolescent readers when putting those types of materials in front of students as opposed to the materials that I saw in Explode the Code. So there's a lot of information here, and you're welcome to go through it and ask questions concerning that. But those were the biggest items that really stuck out to me when I made the comparisons between the two.
I have a couple questions, if I might. As far as MegaWords, what do you anticipate an implementation window? I know with Spire, it took us a good while to get everybody trained, all the supplies in the right place. Mm-hmm. What would be a realistic implementation timeline?
I think that we would have, if we got the materials in over the summer, mm-hmm. we could go ahead and plan the training for the teachers. And I think that we would have 45 adolescent or 45 middle school teachers mm-hmm. trained by November.
By November.
And so they could be making use of those materials by that time.
Okay. Have you been able to contact any other schools or school districts that actually use MegaWords currently and get their feedback?
No, I haven't done that, although I have been in contact with some of the school systems that put HillRap in place.
And what kind of feedback did you get from those that used HillRap?
I got pretty positive feedback from the ones that I talked to with elementary students. Mm-hmm. The ones that put it in place with middle school, I think there were only 2 districts within the county, and I was invited to come out to one, but it was so late in the game that I haven't had a chance to go out to that particular one. The ones at elementary school, they were talking about, they were very complimentary and positive about HillRap. They were experiencing good growth with those students that were in it, which I suspect that they would, to be honest with you. But 2, it was elementary school. I did contact Denise Morton at HillRap, and I asked for numbers. I wanted to know the impact that HillRap had at other schools that were instructing adolescent readers. And the data that they were able to provide was regarding Lexile scores with EOGs. And what they found was students in 5th to 6th grade in HillRap grew 75 Lexile points, where a typical reader who is meeting the minimum sufficient growth or sufficient moving from the minimum level 3 to the minimum level 3 from 5th to 6th grade had 20 points growth. So that was really good for those students. When it came to 6th to 7th grade, the typical student grew 70 points, but the student only grew 68. But in 7th to 8th grade, the typical student grew 95 points and the HillRap student grew 181. So what that tells me that it may take a couple years before you see that large leap with those adolescent readers, which I suspected anyway. I think the last time I came to the table, we talked about that delay before we see a huge jump with older students because they have so many gaps that you have to fill it in. She said that this was only from one site that they had implemented with adolescent readers. So I don't think that there's not a lot of data and information out there with adolescent readers in HillRap because they haven't implemented it in other schools as frequently as they have elementary.
It sounds like HillRap is better suited to start at the elementary level and follow all the way through.
I agree.
Rather than pick up at the point that we're looking at because we have Spire for the younger ages. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair assessment?
That is a fair assessment.
Okay. MegaWords, I assume that comes out from some private firm, company that offers it.
Well, it is made available through EPS, I believe, is the publishing company, which is, I mean, we use them all the time to make purchases.
Other
So,
textbooks and stuff?
yes.
Okay. Oh, are they?
Trust.
And so it's your recommendation that this would best suit our needs, MegaWords, if our goal is to implement a program on the middle school and even high school level, your opinion is this is best suited to our needs?
I think it's best suited to fit the needs of students who have struggled with automaticity with Word.
Will it assist, will it have an impact with dysgraphia as well, as far as the writing skills?
It depends exactly what the issue is. If part of the dysgraphia is because they're struggling to find the code that matches the letters, absolutely it will help because it takes encoding and decoding, writing and reading, and it puts them together very well. But if it's because of constructing, coming up with sentences, coming up with the ideas, I don't think MegaRap will help with that part.
Okay. And this is based on OG principles?
It is.
Or Gillian? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate any additional OG training either to supplement this or just as an ongoing training for all of our EC teachers? Is that an ongoing
Right
process?
now, what we are doing is we offer training. It's not essentially OG, but it comes from that. I am in the process right now of becoming reading research to classroom practice, trained to be an instructor for the state. And a lot of what I have, we've already been training teachers, not in those practices, but in best practices that are founded in Orton-Gillingham. We've already been training teachers in after-school trainings.
So the short answer is yes,
Yeah.
that is ongoing.
You're learning to be a trainer so that you
Yes.
could do it yourself. We don't have to go outside. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Do you feel need for any additional funding above and beyond this item in order to continue that process? If you do, I would make that known to Dr. Jones up through the budget process. But I would like to, I'll make a motion to move forward and to endorse the acquisition and implementation of the MegaWords program in the next budget cycle and for implementation this fall. I will need a second.
Is that your request?
Yes, we would, yes.
Want to make sure.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is so important. And I'm coming to you as a parent of a child with dyslexia. So thank you very much for what you do.
Well,
Very
thank you.
appreciated. I just want to confirm, so the 45 teacher training is middle school level?
It is.
And the training we've already done for Spire, you see that as at the elementary level, and this would be the next step from middle school to high school.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how many teachers did you have trained for Spire, if you don't mind refreshing my memory?
We have a total, we trained 65. 5 of those have since left the county or have gone on to different positions. So we currently have, we have 60.
Okay.
That have been trained.
Will you be requiring any funding for any replacement kits for Aspire for next year?
No, we will not.
You have plenty there.
Yes.
We
will need consumables.
Yeah, that's what I mean, the supplies that go with it that.
Yes,
you
there
use
are
up.
consumable readers and consumable student books. So those two are the areas that we will need funding for.
Okay, and you'll put that in your budget request when you kick it up?
Yes.
You got it, okay. The 45 teachers are middle school.
Yes.
Do you plan anything on the high school level?
We haven't planned for anything on the high school level as of yet.
Okay, all right. So if we, let's say they move into the district, because I'm going to hope we're going to catch them before they get to high school with an issue. Say they move to the district and they're in 9th grade and they have a problem. How do we address that if we don't have a structured program? They just pull them out of class and try and use the best skills. We don't have a formalized we don't have a mega words ready for the high school level. So we're just going to do our best instructional skills and apply those, correct?
We do. The teachers work specifically with students, whether they work with them through study skills or through their, English classes. They provide extra assistance. The other part of that is looking at the accommodations and modifications that are done
An IEP
in
or
order
something
to
like
help
that. Yeah.
with that.
Okay. I will, two things. First of all, if you could, before the next board meeting, when this issue comes to the board, if you could contact the firm and get some references, some school districts that have implemented the program or are utilizing the program. And if you could get that out to the committee early, that'd be great, particularly in our area. The other thing is, this is just a suggestion. Let's see how this goes in the middle school, and maybe we could look at then the next year adaptation for any teachers in the high school level that might have an interest in becoming familiar or having this system at their disposal. They may not all need to be trained, but we just have it there ready to go if we find a need on the high school level as well.
Well, it would be good to look possibly at maybe an elective at the high school level where students could access that.
Great.
My last question, I know we have a motion in a second, but my last question would be, we have 9 middle schools. Will these 45 teachers, will we be able to cover all 9 middle schools with the 45? Okay, not just 1 or 2 clusters. Okay, very good, wonderful. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we will now have dual language programming.
This one, I hope, will be short and sweet. I just wanted to let the board know publicly, as you all know, you've been very supportive of our dual language immersion schools and the possible expansion. Last year, we expanded to the Monroe cluster. I've expressed my interest to look at the Forest Hills cluster as a next step. That would complete and ensure that every one of our clusters is represented with a dual language option. And so the principals of both Wingate Elementary and Marshville Elementary have expressed an interest in exploring this. Obviously, we can't make a recommendation until we have enough parents that are interested. I think both of those schools would be a great fit, very similar to what we have at Walter Pickett and East with a possible 50-50 model. So I just wanted the board to know that they are going to begin exploring this with parents during their kindergarten open houses and registrations. And if we have the interest that would make at least one full class, we'll come back to the board and let you all know. There's no action that's needed at the time. I just wanted you all to be aware that we are exploring this road, and it kind of excites me because if that becomes a reality next year, again, every single cluster in the county would have a dual language school within that cluster, at least one. So just wanted to let the board know that we're exploring that. Marshville and Wingate Elementaries.
Could you refresh my memory, Dr. Julian? Do we need to prepare for middle school this fall, or are we looking at the next year?
This fall, I believe we will have dual language immersion classrooms in the Marvin Middle School because you have Marvin Elementary Chinese, Mandarin Chinese moving up, and also at Sun Valley Middle School because you have Sun Valley and Shiloh that currently have 5th grade. So that would be effective for next fall.
Dr. Houlihan, our kindergarten registration started a while back. Are we late to the game as far as this information in Marshville and Wingate if they've already registered?
The kindergarten registration is ongoing. And so the actual dual language application is not going to be due until April the 1st. So, and that's across the entire county. So that is no decisions will be made until that point in time in terms of lotteries and you know who's gotten accepted. Both principals have expressed to me that they've had one kindergarten open house already. They're going to reach out to those parents and invite them to come back. And then they're have at least 2 or 3 more coming up during the next few weeks. So I don't think we're behind the 8 ball.
If an elementary school in a cluster that already has at least one elementary school with the DLI can you walk me through the application process or the expression of interest, and where does it go to fruition as far as a timeline to actually, because it sounds like to me if the deadline is April, they've missed it for the fall semester. Can they pick it up in the spring kindergarten? So you've missed it until fall. If any school that doesn't have it right now, elementary, is interested, you're looking at 2019 for implementation, correct?
Well, if you have a current elementary school that does not have a dual language program, but is interested in starting one for next year, it's not too late for that.
Okay. Not too late for fall 2018.
No.
Okay.
But typically in the spring during this time is when we evaluate parent interest and enrollment. And so once you have enough kids to make a class, then we are able to work with our HR staff to find the right teacher that's bilingual, that's certified, et cetera. And so, no, I mean, once you get to that around April 1, you can't really do that after April the 1st.
How do you reach, because you're reaching out to the rising kindergartner families. So if you don't have a pre-K or a preschool program, you're just having to, how do you contact your parent base?
It's mass marketing. It is I'll call it's going to daycares, it's going to preschools, it's going to your neighborhood community areas and going to churches. It's basically a mass marketing across your entire current zone of kids where you have. It's also word of mouth. A lot of parents that have neighbors or have, members of their church communities or et cetera, or that may have an older child in the school. So they do a pretty good job of marketing these opportunities, and the turnouts at both Wingate and Marshville earlier were okay. But we've noticed, and I've noticed here, kindergarten families typically wait to come in and register until closer to the end of the school year. We're trying to be much more proactive to do that now as opposed to waiting until May.
So that's 2 elementaries for one cluster. Are there any other elementaries that we may need to prepare and offer this in a different cluster?
We've not discussed that. I mean, ideally, from a visioning standpoint, if all 30 of our elementary schools one day had a dual language option, I would fully support that idea. It's really hard to do that when you look at staffing, because finding enough bilingual teachers across the 30 elementary schools, that's hard. And so we've not had any other principals or schools that have come forward with this. These 2 have. It's kind of been a plan all along to at least get programs started in every cluster. The other reason why I like the idea of 2 schools in the cluster is because right now, use Marvin Elementary as an example, getting your 15 or 16 kids that are in that 5th grade class that will be in 6th grade next year, that's hard to really logically staff, as opposed to if you have 2 schools with a larger population that end up going to middle school. My final point, Wingate and Marshville, their population is somewhat mobile. When the principals will tell you when they have a child that withdraws from one school, 9 times out of 10, they go to the other one. So the logic was, if you're in kindergarten at Wingate or kindergarten at Marshville and you're in the dual language, if you withdraw or move, going to the other school, you just can possibly go right back into that dual language program.
That makes perfect sense. April 1st is going to be here before we know it. It's right around the corner. And I did believe there was possibly one other elementary school in the county that might need this type of program. So that's why I wanted to ask you if this was only limited to Marshville and Wingate, and if there was any other elementary schools that were interested.
It's not limited. I think that these are the 2, because it's a new cluster. I know that I've had some discussions, and staff has had some discussions with a few other schools. Fairview comes to mind as one that might be looking at this as an option. But as of today, that decision hasn't been made. We're exploring that in other schools, but I know for a fact that in these 2, they definitely want to move forward just to explore the possibility.
So Fairview, for example, if Fairview were to add a dual language immersion, that would coincide with Unionville Elementary. So if you have a 2 elementary proposal like you have for Marshville and Wingate, then you would have Fairview and Unionville to work together to feed into Piedmont Middle. So that's why I wanted to verify if, because April 1st the deadline's going to be here quickly.
Right.
So I didn't know what your conversations were with the Piedmont cluster.
I've had some conversations with the principal of Fairview, Ms. Thomas. On the surface, she's supposed to get back to me by the end of next week on this, and other principals as well, other schools. But these two, again, because of the time and because of the expansion to a new cluster, that's why I wanted to bring these two to your attention. That these two principals have said we want to move forward. We're ready. And they've kind of known that for a while.
Does Dr. Jones, do you know if there's a waiting list at Unionville Elementary for dual language?
I don't know the current numbers. Ms. Garner would know that, but there could be.
Could you get that information for
Sure.
the committee? I mean, no hurry, and you can even email us when you find
Just
out.
Unionville?
Yes, please.
I have a question.
Mrs. Sturdivant?
Hey,
Oh.
I have a question for Dr. Moran. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you great.
Okay, just for clarity, I know that Dr. Moran, you mentioned that mass marketing will be available. So I'm assuming that there will be some form of informational session for the parents to get a better grasp on what the dual language program is and as well as the advantage.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. There will be many, not just one, but several information sessions and options for parents. Both administrations from both schools have expressed an interest to go to both schools for those information sessions. The principal at Marshville is bilingual, and she has actually offered to go to Wingate and vice versa to help translate in Spanish as well. So there will be a formal presentation made on the benefits of dual language immersion, why a parent might be interested, the research behind it, etc. We typically do that every year as we market our dual language programs at every school.
Okay, very good. And okay, that's my only question. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Candace.
I have a question. In the clusters that have Mandarin, have we thought about expanding it to a Spanish immersion program as well? Do a Spanish and a Mandarin?
Within the same school or within the same cluster?
Within the same cluster?
Either.
That has not come to my attention. Dr. Jones, do you want to comment on that?
I have not had that come. Certainly, Dr. Houlihan has had conversations since last year with individual schools about what would be your interest. And if a school wanted to have an interest and look at a Spanish, I'm sure we could look at what the possibilities would be.
Okay.
Do we have data available of currently enrolled students that there could be a younger sibling that's a rising kindergartner in the family? Do we keep those kind of statistics? You got a sibling, they're not in school yet, but we know they're coming.
I don't
market to.
We would know that in one of two ways. Number one, when you come to enroll, or number two, if you come to an information session or a kindergarten open house. But I don't think, unless,
On the family.
I don't think we keep that data until you're actually a student within the system.
Okay.
Okay, any more information on dual language? Okay, then we will move to restart application update. Oh, I apologize. Driver's education update.
We had requested an update regarding our driver education program. We had provided information in the handouts, and Ms. Traywick is here as well, who oversees the programs. You see our participation numbers that we have, and we really are on track. We have, right now, we have a waiting line of students who we will be moving through behind the wheel that have completed their coursework, and those we are working with drivers, getting the driving done on weekdays as well as Saturdays that is provided. There also is information from the state regarding changes. Like anything else at the state, we're going through a season of change, looking at driver's education, about looking at a change with standards, as well as a statewide driver's ed curriculum and exam. We create our curriculum here, and remember that our classwork curriculum is available online for our students, and we work online. One of the few in the state that has accomplished that. But the state also is considering looking at their own online curricula and looking at making it blended. So that would be a change if moving forward, if they looked at blending where there is more personal work. We work with students after completing the exam. If they fail the exam for the classwork, then we go back in and work with them and allow them to retest. And we help with assessment, and we help with kind of reteaching in that area. But the state has some ideas that they're talking about regarding blended. And then information that we provided on defensive driving. And I'll ask what your specific questions are. And Ms. Trawick, anything you want to elaborate on what I just shared?
The numbers may seem a little skewed that we're halfway through a school year, and so it seems like the coursework is low, but that includes 2 months that we don't offer courses because of final exams and that sort of thing. So we're really ahead. We average 321 students per coursework, and with last year's it was 285. So we actually have more students.
Do you want us to go through the defensive driving? Do you have questions?
Well, I'll let Ms. Trawick present what her findings and her thoughts on the defensive drive. Just to back up a little bit, I had concerns that we have young drivers out on the road that are not prepared for, let's just say, adverse road conditions. We have very questionable roads in places not only in this county but all around the state. And I know particularly this year we've lost some of our several of our young people to hazardous conditions, going off the road and losing control, hydroplaning in conditions that almost any driver, let alone an inexperienced one, may not know how to react and has certainly not had practice at reacting to those conditions. And I asked Ms. Trawick and her staff to look at options where we might somehow enhance our driver ed program, either through the curriculum itself, through the driving experience, or something in addition that might be optional to parents to enroll, like a rodeo or a separate elective type option to the driver's ed, similar to the brakes program up in Cabarrus County, where students get actual behind the wheel experience in potentially hazardous situations so that they learn how to react and hopefully will be prepared for those kind of situations. And that's kind of the charge I gave Ms. Trawick and her group. With that general framework of seeing how we can potentially modify our program, what are our feasible options to do just that? And that's kind of, to my recollection, where we left it.
Unfortunately, you're not going to like the answer. There aren't many feasible options just because of liability, expense, space, those sort of things. If you look at all of these defensive courses, each one of them, each one of them definitely, the students have to have their learner's permit, which is after us. They've completed our portion of driver's ed. The Safe Teen Driving Academy in Charlotte, they've actually gone away from hands-on per se. It is it's still just verbal now. And it's like, this could happen and this may be how you respond, sort of thing. Brakes is the only program around here that I have found that offers the actual driving experience, but it comes with a lot of requirements. If you go there, it's free. It's $99 refundable. However, if you bring it here, it's an average of $500 per student. And that list of requirements below, from space to porta-johns to 100 pounds of chalk to draw lines, those sort of things, it's quite costly, and it wouldn't be effective in the manner of how many students we serve currently.
Ms. Trader, any of the programs that you've listed, can we share this with parents as resources?
Absolutely.
That we say this would be available.
Absolutely.
If you.
After you complete.
Correct. And this is where you could go to look beyond. So we certainly could share that information within our courses.
And you bring up such an excellent point that I had not considered. You're right. I've checked into the Breaks program myself for my children, and that's right. This is long after they've already done their coursework and behind the wheel with UCPS.
And Breaks
before they can do this.
Right. Breaks, you have to actually have 30 hours of experience on the road after you have your learner's permit too.
Okay.
And the parent has to be there.
So this is long after, we've done.
And they quote themselves, and I highlighted it. I don't know if you have the colored copy or not. That is not a driver education course. It's an advanced driving course.
Right. A supplement. Perfect.
Well, I want to thank you for exploring that option.
Yeah, thank you.
It's just, to me, it's unfortunate that, I hope parents will take advantage. I know I will, when the day comes when my daughter gets behind the wheel, which is scary enough to think about as it is, let alone with and the fact that if we do go to Breaks, I'll have to be in the car with her. That makes it different. But I would encourage parents to, even if you have to take your children out on a back road and have them, experience that firsthand. I would rather somehow hope that these kids in a non-threatening situation can learn some of these skills, because it's going to rain one day and you're going to be driving home from work. You're not going to be able to avoid it. And there's going to be a situation where you get run off the road. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And if you haven't ever experienced it before, it's going to be a hard time to learn it. So I would encourage parents to take the extra initiative, because it's my understanding that automobile fatalities are the number one cause of death of young people in that certain age range. And it's something that needs to be addressed. And it looks like right now that responsibility is going to be on the parents. So as a son of a former driver education teacher who did do that, take me out and say, okay, it's raining bad, you're going to drive. And I would encourage parents to take that initiative. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We will go back now to the Restart application update.
Just an update on Restart applications and I did put information in your packet after the last board meeting. This was approved for Benton Heights, East Elementary, and Walter Pickett for us to submit applications to the state. Dr. Laurel Healy submitted the applications on that evening, February the 6th. We did receive confirmation that they were received at the State Department. That email is provided in your packet. So it has been received. It is presented to the board during their State Board of Education during their March meeting for review, anticipated for approval in April. And then we may move forward then after it's approved with Restart actions.
Any more information, or is that covers all the bases?
We're on track.
Okay, thank you.
We're on track.
So April is kind of the
Expect the vote from the board, from the state board in April.
April vote.
Yes,
Okay.
probably final notification to us in May. That's when we found out last year.
Okay, May. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to classroom libraries update.
We are also on track with classroom libraries. At this time, they have the books ready to go. They're in the containers. They're listed by teacher. We have notified principals that we will be expecting those soon. We're working with Mr. Covington in finance on finalizing the PO. Rashawn, who is the representative from Scholastic, we spoke earlier this week. She's providing the final documentation that's needed for inventory when the principals receive, so they can double check the orders that they receive. But we are in the final stages, and we anticipate that these books can be in the teachers' hands within a couple of weeks.
Was this for all 30 elementary schools?
This was all 30 elementaries, grades 3 through 5.
Dr. Jones, in keeping that going up to the next level, do you anticipate the funding request for classroom libraries in the middle schools to be part of the next fiscal year budget request?
Part of the next year budget request, as well as looking at available textbook funds, and also digital resources in middle school. We're actually piloting Mayan, and we're hearing positive from our middle schools. So that would also increase books that would be available for our middle school students.
Good. Okay, attendance update for middle and secondary Saturday schools.
I have spoken, as you remember, Monroe High School, East Union Middle, and Monroe Middle School. Their principals came and presented regarding their efforts on what they are doing with after school and Saturday. It is all a part of the initiative for additional time that you supported in Dr. Houlihan's initiative. Just a couple of notes at Monroe High School. They're seeing a steady increase from the first Saturday to the last Saturday of the semester. In other words, as the semester progresses, there becomes a greater need for additional time, as well as whether it be attendance or whether it be working with the academics. The number of students participating, Dr. Harvey states, is a little unpredictable. He is considering transportation to rally points, particularly for Saturdays, to see how we could pick up within that. I have for the budget for the next year requested $10,000 for transportation for Saturday school, as well as additional time school for Monroe High School to meet that. We are working with Monroe High School regarding also providing breakfast and having something that when they unload and they have that. In East Union Middle School, they are continuing to work on their programming. They're planning a blitz with 4 to 6 Saturdays leading up to the EOGs. They right now have had in Saturdays a pretty low turnout, or at least people who've expressed an interest. And so Mr. Sanders is working on that. However, on the flip side at East Union, their additional time is working with after school, about 50 students who are remaining after school, as well as 30 who remain for 21st century. The school has tweaked their instructional schedules to provide more time during the day, including an intervention block also to address that. There are no funding issues with that as that is provided in the initiative. They're just trying to figure out ways to get more students to come in for Saturdays. Monroe also is very strong, Monroe Middle, in their additional time in after schools. Their after school tutoring. They have 100 plus students in reading and math groups that they are beginning to work with, as well as in those beyond those groups, Mr. Ferguson's also working with science, because 8th grade science is a key that's assessed, and they will be working with those students to form those assessments. They have been going into the community and talking with parents about Saturdays. They too have had a low response, but they're actually doing home visits that they're trying to get students that are coming in, and sometimes crossing that threshold and explaining to parents, or going to the door at least face to face, can do that. So they're working with that. There are no funding issues there that are holding them back. Transportation and food, they are both included in the current funding that they have. So those 3 schools are working on that.
Okay, that brings us to budget.
You had asked about our update regarding our budget, and just simply to say that we're working with Mr. Covington in finance with the development of our budget, just as all divisions in the school system are doing that. All of our departments in teaching and learning have submitted their individual budgets to finance, and that will be compressed into one proposal that we will be able to look for teaching, and we'll be discussing that with the cabinet. Some highlights, though, I can share. I mentioned the Monroe High School transportation. We also are looking at adding or making a request regarding supporting our tutoring program, which is an initiative working with meeting our tutors and working with programming and making sure that the work that they're doing is aligned and they're supported in that work. So expanding in that area, more support and resources with our social and emotional learning that will be seen, and that aligns with your strategic priority number 2. So we're looking at how we build that framework continually, and we look at resources as well as making sure we sustain our college and career initiatives, which is also a part of strategic priority number 2, making sure that in the upcoming year, we're able to sustain what we're doing with our college board testing, our PSAT, our SAT, continuing the work with Naviance. And then finally, 2 other items, online surveys. We're going to actually be piloting a digital online survey to parents this year instead of passing out in paper since we've done since 1993. We're going to make that change this year. We are we're only 18 years in the 21st century, but we're finally coming to light on that. And so that will be piloted, but in that budget next year that we are able to look at stakeholder surveys and even possibly look at how we can do that more frequently. And then the last piece of the budget is going to be an early warning system. That's something that Dr. Houlihan has really challenged us in our work to say, how do we have those dashboards and those resources that are pulling data together that we can see what are the warning signs that we can support both academically and social and emotional. So those are some of the items that we're looking at in our budget for the upcoming year.
What's your deadline for submitting to finance your final budget?
We're in that process right now. We have submitted, but we also are going back and talking with them continually. They continually work with us in this process, but we have.
What's your drop dead date? End of April, May? I can't remember the timeline.
So we are looking at by end of this month, I believe we said, Mr. Covington, by end of this month, all departments need to submit their draft recommended budgets. And then we will sit down together as a cabinet senior leadership team to vet that, go through that process, and be well prepared before it comes to the finance committee.
They're very accommodating in the process.
Thank you. Oh, this is easy.
You haven't gotten to the cabinet yet, John. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're optimistic.
The hot seat.
I'll turn off my mic on that one.
Okay, thank you. We need to talk about the next meeting date and items for action to the board. I didn't know if you wanted to continue with the 4th Thursday. Next month actually has 5 Thursdays.
Okay.
So we have the option of either doing the 22nd or 29th.
It's the last or the 4th, whatever's good for the.
Doesn't matter.
I would say, let me see.
Does what's Spitz?
I would. Do you like meeting right before the board meeting, or is there too much of a window of movement if we did it on the 22nd or?
I would prefer that we do it on the 22nd.
22nd?
Yes.
Candace, does that work for you?
Yes, it works for me.
So our next meeting will be March 22nd. And do you prefer 9 a.m., 8:30? What time frame do you prefer?
I think one of the members in the last meeting stated 9 a.m. works well for her.
Okay.
That was Candace.
Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Okay, so next meeting will be March 22nd at 9 a.m. here at the PDC. And
Just double checking, the
mhm.
2 items that will be going to the board
Mhm.
will be Epic grant contracts and Walter Pickett education calendar. So those are the 2 items that we will send forward, correct? Yes.
So we'll have a report on the agenda. We'll have a report.
On consent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
okay,
That you get.
I'm second.
okay. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.